Hello, welcome to another episode of the Guitar and Improvisation Podcast. I'm going to talk a little bit about the changes to minor blues. And I just released over the weekend a melody video on Mr. PC, which is minor blues in C. So we'll work with C minor here. By listening to this podcast, I hope that you can really get a firm idea of the form of the minor blues if you don't have that already. And also take some things that you may already really know and be strong with and use those to really work at the changes. In jazz repertoire, whether it's blues or other progressions or other forms, we can really benefit from getting specific with the chord changes and having a pretty deep understanding of what we're doing with respect to the harmony. So I'm taking two elements here. We have typical chord shapes, drop 2 and drop 3, along with pentatonic shapes, which are pretty familiar to most of us. So let's start with the one chord. We have a 12 measure form, minor blues. We have the one chord, C minor, playing C minor 7 here. We have this chord for 4 measures. Okay. Now, if I'm in 8th position here, playing string 6, 4, 3, and 2 on the 8th fret, I can take that shape and think about that and use that as a reference point for the sound, but also for the shape, because that's going to be embedded inside the C minor pentatonic. And that stays pretty close to the sound of the chord itself. It's basically like a C minor 11. In bar 5, we move to the 4 chord. If we were to count up in the key of C minor, we'd have the 1, 2, flat 3, and then the 4. If we selected the notes, every other note of the C minor scale, we'd have F, A flat, C, and E flat. And so that spells out the F minor 7. So that's the 4 chord. Now we can continue playing C minor pentatonic on this chord. That's perfectly fine, and it sounds pretty good. Let's say we really want to outline the chord change. So a closer fit for that purpose would be to play the F minor pentatonic. Remember, we're not talking in terms of right or wrong. These are just different ways of approaching your note choices as you work through the progression. So this one's going to fit a little bit closer because you're getting the A flat in there. Aside from the other notes, they're all the same as the C minor pentatonic. We go back to C minor, back to the 1 chord in measure 7. So to stay closely related to this chord, we can work back into the C minor pentatonic. Now up to this point, we've played 6 notes out of 7 notes of the minor scale. So let's talk a little bit about the 7th note of natural minor. So those are the notes in the range of the 8th position. So that scale will work with both of these chords. Let's talk about measure 9, and then we'll get into measure 10. So this is where it gets a little bit more involved, and likely it's going to require a good bit more study on this. But the fun part of this is that you may learn, if you don't know this already, a new pentatonic type scale. This one is called the dominant pentatonic. So we have A flat dominant pentatonic. Let's say we have an A flat 9 chord. You can play a scale like this. Now I'm still in position 8, which is pretty helpful because so far we've been playing in that area. So what is a dominant pentatonic scale? Well, it's a 5-note scale, and it's more closely associated with the dominant, as the name suggests here. So we can hear it has this major quality to it, and then it has this tritone in it, so it fits the dominant 7th very nicely. Basically it takes the C minor pentatonic and it pushes 2 of the notes 1/2 step higher. That would be the 4th note of the scale, 1/2 step higher, and the 5th note of that scale, 1/2 step higher. And if we relate that to the A flat, it fits the A flat 9. That chord and that sound will function as a predominant chord. In other words, a chord that comes before the 5 chord, which is G7. On this particular chord, we're going to talk about 3 different ways that we might color this, although there are more. We'll start with the simplest and easiest way to get to this, which would be to play the G dominant pentatonic. Okay, so you could practice playing a few notes on the A flat dominant pentatonic, then play a few notes on the G dominant pentatonic and go back and forth between those two and get fluent with that change. Now, when it comes to dominant 7th chords, we want to develop a lot of language, a lot of ability to navigate that sound and use various extensions really at will. So let's play around here a little bit with that 9. We'll work with the sharp 9 and see how that sounds. So we're making a little bit of a change to the dominant pentatonic. So there we have a bit more of a sharp 9 kind of sound. Let's consider the flat 9 kind of sound. Okay, so we have one measure of A flat 7 and one measure of G7. Those are going to move pretty quickly, especially at the tempo of Mr. PC, but practice them slowly and practice, like I said, going back and forth between the two, and also practice going from the G7 to where it resolves, the C minor. I recommend anything that is a little bit unfamiliar to really isolate that a bit and then work on how it moves to a single chord rather than practicing the whole form and then stumbling over those changes or just playing a little bit vague there. I'd recommend really getting into a single change or 2 chords and creating different melodies that can work between those shifting harmonies. I have a video version of this podcast down in the description below. Check out that link. I also have a PDF that shows all the shapes that I was just mentioning, as well as another collection down in position 3. Check that out in the description as well. But ultimately, you want to be able to work this out in all 5 fingerings throughout the neck. There's also a sampling of the PDF in an article that I wrote on my Substack account, so check that out, study.fretprince.com, or again, use the links down below. I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. If you're a beginning player in jazz, self-book a private lesson with me, and I'll get you up to speed with what you need to know to play in this genre. And if you're an intermediate or advanced player, check out my membership website. It's brand new. We have sound slice, exercises, talks, live streams, and WebEx meetings. Come and join our community there. All right, everybody. Well, have a great practice session, and I'll talk to you in the next one.